Hello and welcome back to another week's analysis behind the news. We're doing this a few days early as we have just learned of the historic results of the Brexit vote. The UK has voted by a small margin to leave the EU. Now, Nigel Farage, leader of the UK Independence Party, announced, "We have fought against the multinationals. We have fought against the big merger banks. We have fought against big politics. We fought against lies, corruption, and deceit. And today, honesty, decency, and belief in nation, I think now is going to win. And we will have done it without having to fight, without a single bullet being fired. We'll have done it by damned hard work on the ground. We'll have done it not just for ourselves, we'll have done it for the whole of Europe. I hope this victory brings down this failed project and leads us to a Europe of sovereign nation states trading together, being friends together, cooperating together, and let's get rid of the flag, the anthem, Brussels, and all that has gone wrong. Let June the 23rd go down in history as our Independence Day." Prime Minister David Cameron announced that with the results of the vote, the country had decided to go in a new direction and that he would step down in October. He also said that he does not feel that he is best placed to lead the exit from the EU and that it was not up to him to decide when to trigger Article 50, which, according to The Express, is the law that would start the process of the country's political divorce from the EU. He said he wanted the next Prime Minister to determine this. Now this will begin a 2-year extraction from the EU. And the aftermath of this will be phenomenal and widespread. As also part of the UK, the majority of Scotland had voted to remain in the EU. So Scottish leaders look to be moving forward in a referendum that will see they stay in it. Scotland rejected an independence vote from the UK in 2014 in hopes that it would stay in the EU. Now that the UK is leaving the EU, Scotland seems to be planning another independence referendum to leave the UK so it can continue to be part of the EU. Obviously, this is a clear victory for liberty as opposed to globalism. But you and I both know that the globalists will not go quietly and will make it as hard as possible for the UK to actually leave the EU within its 2 years' time of triggering Act 50. But this victory also reflects hope. Hope of altering the globalist agenda. Hope of dismantling their infrastructure piece by piece. We say first the EU, then the UN. Hope that the trade deals will be defeated and sovereignty will be restored and jealously guarded. Brexit has allowed the UK to thumb its nose at the EU Commission, which has added layers upon layers of regulations onto the businesses and people of its member states. Its unaccountability appears to be coming to a slow end. We hope Americans set up and take notice of the courage of those in the UK. Recall that the Trans-Pacific Partnership calls for the creation of a TPP Commission that is modeled after the EU Commission. The TPP currently awaits Congress to give it an up or down vote. Prior to the Brexit, Obama, his administration, and Republican leaders have called for quick passage of this trade bill. And recall again that trade deals are what created the bloated bureaucracy that shredded the sovereignty of each EU member state. And Obama and Republican leaders in Congress want this for America? It's time we let them know that in no way should they pass any trade deals. So jump onto jbs.org and click on Act Now to find our federal legislative alerts that will allow you to do just this. Also in the news, we saw members of Congress's Progressive Caucus stage a sit-in in hopes of disrupting the political process to force the rest of Congress to unconstitutionally strip away additional American liberties. Of course, this was in response to the Orlando shooting, in which a gun-free zone created 49 victims, and good guys with a gun killed the gunman. Democratic leadership wants to create a much larger gun-free zone, also known as America. Perhaps remedial reading is needed for them, so they understand the Second Amendment phrase, "The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." But what do we expect from these folks? After all, some of them have a long history of radical revolutionary involvement dating back to their college years. The New American points out two of these, including Representatives John Lewis and Al C. Hastings. In fact, Representative Lewis was featured in our Anarchy USA, which is our 1966 documentary of how communists were behind the civil rights movement. According to the New American article, the real reason for the sit-in on Wednesday and Thursday had nothing to do with actually stopping terrorist acts, such as the one that occurred recently in Orlando, but everything to do with advancing gun, read people, control agenda. As William F. Jasper, writing in the New American in 2013, expressed it, a cardinal feature of communist regimes, like all dictatorships, is the prohibition of private ownership of arms, creating a monopoly of force in the hands of the state. It was another one of those opportunities by radicals and communists that just couldn't be missed. However, we cannot let it pass that some Republicans jumped on the bandwagon of stripping Americans of their rights by trying to legislate that if you find yourself on the unconstitutional, dysfunctional, and poorly maintained no-fly list, that you are somehow deemed a terrorist and should not be able to buy a gun. We recommend you look up these lists of Republicans and ask them to reread the Second and Fourth Amendments. So as England continues to celebrate, let us have our own Brexit by throwing off the tyrannical shackles that have been clamped to us by those with a globalist agenda. Because again, it's not Democrat versus Republican. It's liberty versus tyranny. And as Nigel Farage so eloquently stated it, victory is possible, but it just takes a lot of damned hard work on the ground. And the John Birch Society provides that path to victory with a successful ground plan. Are you involved? Until next week, we'll see you then.